Meeting to order.
6 o'clock on the dot.
It's 6 o'clock. Item number one, public hearing for the 2022 annual city budget. We'll pass it off to Director Jorgensen.
Okay, President Becker, councilors, this is the public hearing, of course, for the property taxes for the year. Leading up to this process, it starts in May. The department heads start looking through their documents and putting together their numbers in May and June. In July, it comes to our office, and we start looking at it and reviewing it, making changes and asking questions as needed. This year, we had a work session with council in August, and then a second one in September. And then the preliminary levy was set at the September 21st meeting. And the truth and taxation hearing is tonight, of course, and will continue next week if we would need it. But I'm looking out, and I don't see a lot of public here, so probably not. So through that process this year, we started with a 12.65% increase in the tax levy. And through the process, we've dropped it to what was set for the preliminary levy at a 5.86% increase. So some of those changes included just some corrections and adjustments. The debt levy dropped, so once we got that final bond issued, we saved about $46,000 there. We decided to use some 290 funds for Park and Rec, so we'll use those capital savings for some of their projects. We made a whole lot of miscellaneous adjustments. We went through, we cleaned up accounts, we cut, 1,000 here, 1,000 there, added up to about $124,000. We reduced the training budget by about $5,000. The sinking fund contribution in total has been reduced by about $55,000. We budgeted to use $80,000 of fund balance to help with engineering contract fees if needed. And then we took the squad car out for next year because we don't think we'll be able to get one anyway. And then we added the gymnastics revenue in that the Park and Rec will see next year. So that just highlights the changes in the process that we've been through to date. And then moving forward, looking at the preliminary budget, you can see this kind of breaks down by fund, the revenue sources. You can see in the general fund, or in all the funds, property taxes and LGA, of course, are our largest sources of revenue. And then the other includes just transfers and things like that from other funds and usually is hit mostly from the debt service just because of the way that all flows through. And then this breaks the revenues down more by source than by department. So again, the property taxes, of course, is 38% of our revenue, and state aid is 19%. Then the rest is broken down in little pieces there. Then when we get into the expenditures, which is the part, of course, that drives the revenues that we need, you can see personnel services, so that includes wages, benefits, taxes of all the employees for the city, is our largest expenditure for the year. The supplies, a little bit are smaller, services and charges. So those are things that we pay for other services from other governments or from other businesses. And then capital outlay and the debt service fund that's the payments for the bonds each year, and then the sinking fund. So that's $685,000 is the contribution we make to what is basically our savings for future projects. This breaks the expenditures down by department. So you can see here Public Works and Public Safety are just about tied there for the need for the expenditures. And then we move into administration, the community center and rec center, the parks and the library. Debt service is a big one. Of course, all that debt is used to pay for road construction improvements. That does not include any of the sales tax bonds, so it doesn't include the Park and Rec debt. That all comes from sales taxes, so it's not in the levy at all. And then the capital improvements and other miscellaneous expenses. This provides kind of a brief history of where we've been with expenditures and the tax levy and tax capacity rate for the last several years. Looking at 2022, 2022, where we're at right now, we're still lower than we were in 2017. Of course, in 2017, we budgeted to buy a large amount of land for both the National Guard and some land for the industrial park. But we are still below that level. But looking at our levy, the levy has increases steadily, of course, each year a little bit with inflation and other costs that are out of our control. And then the tax capacity rate. This will be the first year in a few years where our tax rate is actually going to increase if we leave everything as it is. But it is still, well, so we're at that 2017 level again. This is always probably an interesting slide for most people in town. This breaks down and it looks at the average market value of a home. So based on an average home in New Ulm, this is where your property taxes go. So if you're looking at this, you can say the police department each month, your property tax is 190, or each year $193 goes towards the police department. Or if you go down in the total of Park and Rec, $145 goes of your property taxes goes to Park and Rec. This is just an overall highlight of the levy and the tax rate where it's been over the last several years. Ideally, that tax rate line would stay flat, and the levy would continue to go up, and that would tell us that we're growing at the rate we need to absorb those inflationary costs and additional projects that come into play each year. Our tax rate's kind of bounced around, but since 2017, it hasn't gone up. This slide's always kind of awkward. It's hard to compare year to year because everyone's property values change, but it just compares different home values and what they might pay in their city property taxes. So now we get into more the details of what's in the budget this year, some of the decision points that have been made and the items that have been highlighted through the process to date. So this goes through and it just lists some of the items that we've looked at, some of the bigger items or the changes that stick out because they're not normal expenses within the budget. And it tells you what their impact is on the levy. So the sound and vibration study is about $5,000. The bus route is about $25,000, and that will fluctuate based on ridership, of course, so that could be lower. The Heart of New Ulm contract for $25,000. Christmas decorations, another $10,000. Training for $30,000. And like we said, we took $5,000 out of that just because not all trainings are up and running yet. Not everything's in person, so we anticipate that still being a little bit lower next year. The police uniforms, $15,000. That will cover 3 Kevlar vests for the ERU members. The engineering equipment, that's replacing some equipment that is outdated and unsupported right now. That's about $60,000. Park planning, there's $15,000 in there. Improvements at North Park, and I can't remember if that was bathrooms or pavilions, I can't remember, was $18,000. The fire, and then we get into the sinking funds and which funds are getting contributions next year. So we're putting another $195,000 in both the fire truck equipment and the city facility maintenance, and then $100,000 into capital improvement, which we can use to reduce the bonding need or to balance out some of those bonding needs in the future if we don't have the assessments to keep everything in balance. And then we did start a Herman the German fund. We know he's going to need some extensive work at some point, and we decided we needed to start setting aside some funds for those. So we started with $100,000 for next year. We started a sinking fund for police equipment, which will run similar to the fire truck equipment. So it will help replace the radios and some of their other equipment, and then will help repay the fire department for the funds they borrowed this year to pay for the radios that we're getting. And then the $25,000 for the battery building. This is the third and final contribution based on the initial estimate for that new building. And then the Family Rec Center, we set up a new sinking fund as well to help fund the replacement of fitness equipment as it starts to fail. For right now, most of it is new, but of course at some point we're going to have to start to replace it. So this will help us do that rather than incurring those costs as they come up. Then just looking at what we're going to use some of those savings funds for, the capital improvement funds, we plan to use $60,000. And that will cover repairs at buildings at both Herman Park, German Park, and Washington Park. And then $189,000 will cover some library maintenance, and I believe that included their roofs, some doors, flooring. Yeah, there was a few projects in there that the library needed to have done next year. And then the use of general fund balance, we're budgeted to use $15,000 of the DUI funds to help outfit the K-9 vehicle, and then $80,000 for engineering consultant fees. And then this is another hot topic we've had this year, and that's just the contributions to some of the organizations in town. So I put up what we have budgeted for 2022, what we had for 2021, and then 2020, just because 2020 and 2021 were kind of weird with COVID, and we changed some of those contributions. But it gives you an idea where they've been and where we have them budgeted for 2022. So the Sister Cities Commission will get their $3,700 again. Human Rights, I brought down to $6,050. They generally don't use more than $2,000 or $3,000, but they always ask for more. So I don't know if they have more planned, but I just brought that down to $6,000. The Fairgrounds Association, they asked for $4,000. Actually, they asked for more. We brought it down to $4,000, which has been our previous contribution. Concord Singers, they asked for $6,000 this year. Bavarian Blast, we historically have given them $3,000. And then we've also funded the fireworks for Herman Fest at about $15,000. The municipal band normally gets $15,000. Last year, they only asked for $5,000 because of COVID and their reduced expenses. The Battery as well reduced their expenses last year just because they really couldn't go anywhere. But now they're back up. They're assuming full operation, so they brought that back up. The Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation asked for $1,500 each year. SBDC, we took that one out for the year just because they get money from us in other areas. And then the Wanda Gog House, we've been giving about $1,600 to every year. And then the Lind House has not asked for funds since like 2012, but they did request $5,000 this year. So that covers all those contributions. And that is actually all I have at this point. So I would open it up to public comment or discussion at this point to see where we want to go.
This is a public hearing. Would anyone care to be heard? Any comments?
I have a question on one slide. We go back about 3, I think. One more. Keep going.
Just go back to the beginning.
I guess it was back further than I thought. Keep going.
Slide.
Nah, keep going. Holy crap, it was further than I thought.
This is the first one with numbers on it.
That was the one where it was city, you had 197,000 put away twice.
No, that's
I
two
think they're
different
two
funds.
different.
Fire-
195.
For 95, yep.
195.
That one again.
One's for the fire department. One was for.
One's for the facility
City,
maintenance.
Sir, I wanted to know what the second one, more detail on that one.
There.
There it is, yeah. So just explain a bit more about city facility.
So
What's
that
the
is,
intended use for that.
yep, those funds are there to help maintain all of the city buildings. So,
a
yep.
general,
So this is
okay.
like where the library funds will come from next year to replace their roof or replace their HVAC or
Okay.
any types of
I didn't
those
know- I'm just
expenses that
curious
come
on
up.
that one.
15, 18 years ago.
Before I was here,
Right.
I couldn't tell you when it started. But it's been a lifesaver, I mean, in some situations.
On that same slide, Nicole, do you know when the battery building is supposed to start, or does anyone know when that's supposed to begin?
No,
Well,
I
this
don't
was
think
the
there's.
third of the 3 years that we've been
Right, but with
collecting.
costs going up, I have,
You know, I kind of thought of that too.
I
It's like,
have
does 75
concerns
gonna
about
make it
that and
anymore?
questions, so, because, you get less with less, I guess.
Nicole, that is one of the rare buildings is we own it, and yet it's not on our city facility for putting money away, is it? I don't believe it is.
That's
missed
why we
that.
did the separate
I-
one. yeah.
And do you know why it's that way?
No.
Okay.
So if we build a new building, eventually that'll be added on for
Yeah.
future maintenance.
Just one of those that,
And we insure it and everything.
Right.
so, yeah.
Just a question.
But obviously, we won't build it if we don't have the money, or we'll take it out of another fund or borrow from another
Right.
fund.
Or wait another year.
Or wait another year.
And then my question on the fitness equipment.
Yep.
So this is something separate for Park and Rec for fitness equipment, but I would think that I mean, it's nice to have a savings, but shouldn't some of those replacement costs come from user fees?
Yes, which is basically where this money is coming from. I mean, this would come out of
It
the Park and
comes
Rec
out of
budget,
that.
yeah. So
Okay,
they're
that
contributing,
makes
yeah.
sense. Thank you. Those are my questions and comments.
the one item I always ask the finance director to explain to the general public, because what I hear on the street, 5.86, my taxes are going up. Can you explain it to them again, how that works?
So the
It's
five-
not
yeah.
going to be 5.8%, it went up.
No, the 5.86 is the percent above. So like, say last year we asked for, I can't remember the number, 8 million or just under 8 million. So this year we're asking for 5.86% more than that. So that's the total levy that we're asking all of the property taxpayers for.
Right.
Your property taxes with it at that increase will be, actually your tax rate will go up about 3%.
That's what I wanted to hear on the record.
About half.
But just for perspective, the place that, where I work, that we get all of our food costs went up over 13% this
Right.
year with one company. I mean, so,
and
just to throw that out there for perspective, you know.
We're going to get that
that's-
feedback. I mean, homes this year skyrocketed, the value, so the neighbors' houses, but I mean, I just want it on there.
So
Roughly,
they-
it's about 3%.
Right, the overall, right, but because your house value goes up, then your taxes
Right.
go up, and then there,
Yeah.
so that's just, that's,
Yeah, so even in a year where we don't have an increase, your taxes probably go up because your value goes up.
Maybe
Any
just
other
to
comments?
Maybe to comment on the Christmas decoration, that's just to maintain the current wreaths and lighting.
Yep.
As that, because I'm sure people have all heard, they all talk about, are we doing garlands or this or that? But, we don't have all that information in front of us yet to plan a budget. So nothing's been planned for that or fundraised at this point in time.
Maintain the wreaths that are currently out there and with the lighting on all of them. So this year, only half of them are lit up. Next year, we'll have all of them lit up. That's where some of this will come from, with some in-kind from the PUC. But
with
This will
colors though.
yeah, they will be colored next year. So slowly in phases, we'll get it where it needs to be.
With the budgeted, just to let you know too, with the budgeted use of fund balance, at right now, I estimate that the fund balance will end at 2022 at 52%, which is just above that 50% rate that we like to sit at, so.
Well, before we close, I want to make sure we thank the department heads for their hard work on the budgets and the preparation and all their hard work getting us to this point here tonight. So thank you to each of you.
Yes, I agree.
And staff. And staff.
Yeah.
That's
So there's still room for questions if anybody has any questions or concerns. The final levy will be set at the next meeting.
Thank you. Once again, this is a public hearing. Would anyone care to be heard? Okay. With no other comments, no other questions, at this time we'll close the public hearing and approve revenue and expenditure adjustments as presented to the preliminary 2022 budget and allow staff flexibility and further minor changes needed in arriving at the final individual 22 budget numbers. Do I need a motion for
Be
that?
a motion, yeah.
So move.
Okay. We have a motion.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion is carried with no additional business. This meeting is adjourned.